thank you all for coming, and thank you, Sir Ben Ainslie, for coming. We're really delighted to have him here at the club, and I'm very pleased that we put on a reasonable show for him. It's a very busy schedule. He's very tight on time, so we promise we'll get him out of here by 6:30. So I'm not going to waste a lot of that time by telling you things that you probably already know. But it's a significant list of achievements, and I think it's worth repeating. Certainly long enough for me to have to write down. So Ben started sailing at the age of 8 with his family in Cornwall. By the age of 16, he was the laser radial world champion. By 19, he won his first Olympic silver medal in lasers at Atlanta in 1996. 4 years later at Sydney, he achieved gold at the 2000 Olympic Games. After Sydney, Ben switched to the fin class, which involved putting on 15 kilos. That paid off. Athens 2004, second gold. Qualified for the Beijing 2008 Olympic Games by winning an unprecedented 5th world title in the 2007 Finn Gold Cup in Melbourne. Despite falling ill before his Olympic defence, he managed a 3rd consecutive Olympic gold medal at Beijing. London 2012, Ben made history on the waters of Weymouth, securing his 4th consecutive gold in front of a home crowd. This cemented his position not only as Britain's most successful Olympic sailor, but the most successful Olympic sailor in history. Having been nominated as Team GB's flag bearer, Ben went on to be knighted, a day he apparently described as the proudest moment of his career. After Weymouth, he went to America to defend with Oracle Team USA, the 34 America's Cup in San Francisco, and apparently fulfilled one of his childhood dreams. I can't imagine there are many of those there, by sailing on board Oracle Team USA. One of the biggest comebacks, which I reckon most of us must have seen, from 8-1 down to a 9-8 finish in a winner-takes-all race against the challenger Team New Zealand. I hope that we'll be hearing a little bit from Ben about his plans for the 35th America's World Cup, and where he intends that cup will end up. And I hope also that he'll talk a little bit about Bart's Bash, which I'm hoping all of you will participate in later in the year, which is the memorial world record-breaking race in the memory of the tragic loss of Andrew Bart Simpson, training for the America's Cup. So, Ben, thank you again. Over to you.
All right, thanks, Anthony. Well, it's great to be here. I have to admit, coming to Hong Kong, for the first time, I'm really excited to be here. I'm actually here on behalf of JP Morgan, who's the sponsor of our sailing team, and just really delighted that we were able to, last minute, Anthony and the guys to sort this out so I could come and see the yacht club and meet you all, and really talk a little bit about my sailing career. I probably most appropriately talk about how I got into sailing and when I was a youngster, sort of learning how to race and getting into competition, and a little bit about the America's Cup, which is most recent, and it was pretty exciting racing, being out there in San Francisco. And then, you know, if you've got any questions, please just ask. We'll get on to that later on. So as Anthony said, I grew up well, actually I was born in the middle of the UK in a county in Cheshire, which is about far away from the sea as you can get. So our parents were really into sailing, but it was a very casual thing that we did maybe every other weekend if we were lucky in the summer. But I was very fortunate when I was about 8 years old that my parents decided to move our family to Cornwall in the far southwest of the UK, which is a really big sailing area, a lot of fishing, a lot of you know, the coast is a big part of life down there, and we live very close to the water. So I was very fortunate to get into Optimist sailing down there. We had a great sailing club called Restronget Sailing Club, and again we were very fortunate that one of the parents at the club was a really talented sailor. He sailed a class of boat called a Firefly. I don't know if you have that here or you've seen it, but you know, it's a big class of boat back in those days. and he was a very talented sailor, and he had 2 kids around about my age, so he really took on coaching the youngsters at the club, and there wasn't really that kind of support down there before that. But it really you know, taught me at a very early age the importance of having good people to train with. So whilst you're all here in the Oppies and the youth classes, it's really vital that you've got good coaching, that you've got good people to train with. You're only really as good as the group that you train with. And we went from that club down in Cornwall that didn't have anybody really performing well at a national or international level. Within 2 or 3 years we became the top club in the country, just because we were training together, you know, we were working together. And really, personally, I've carried that through all of my career, certainly my Olympic career. You might end up only one person representing a country at the Olympic Games in sailing, but you need a really strong squad around you, people to train with, to push you to be better and better. So whilst you might see everyone here you're racing against as competition, actually you should all be helping each other to get better, and then when you go and race internationally, hopefully the results will come. But yeah, we started off down in Cornwall. It was a bit of an effort. Certainly we all relied very heavily on our parents to get us to the events. It was a long way from Cornwall up to the different competitions around the country. And also in those days they just started off with the youth squad in the UK, and there was a guy called Jim Saltonstall who is a very famous coach in the UK, very charismatic guy from Yorkshire with a very strong Yorkshire accent, and he used to make us all laugh. But he was really the first guy to really have the passion and make people believe that we could go out and we could win internationally. And you know, in those days, British sailing, we had a few top results, but nothing like the success that we had in the last sort of 15 years or so. And I think a lot of that really came down to Jim Saltonstall and his passion and his instilling in us the belief that we could be successful as a group. If we were together, we could go out and we could race internationally and be one of the top nations. So we worked towards the Youth World Championships, which I don't know if any of you here have competed or are looking to compete in that event, but obviously it's a huge event for youth sailing globally, and that was a great target for us to work towards, and then to move through that. Personally, I was a laser sailor when I was younger, so I worked through the laser for the Youth World Championships. That was a goal for me, and then I was very fortunate because the laser became an Olympic class in, I think, 1993. So it became an Olympic class then for the 96 Olympics. And that was a great goal to go from youth sailing to then have a target for senior level sailing. And that's quite a difficult transition to make, isn't it? Because you've got to obviously work around your schooling and not worrying about mobile phones.
Sorry.
So no, but it's a, I'm sure you're going through that a little bit, depending on your age groups, how much you work your sailing in around your studying and your education and exams and all the rest of it. And it is obviously really important that you do what you can with your sailing, and that's your passion and your sport, but also, you know, getting your schooling right and your education. And for me, I went through that. I had to make a pretty big decision when I was 18 years old. I qualified for the 1996 Olympics, and at the same time I was supposed to be going to take the exams we have in the UK for university. And so I had to make a big call whether to take the exams or to train for 12 months for the Olympic Games. I was very fortunate. My parents supported me, and my dad was okay with it. My mum took a little bit of persuading, but in the end she agreed that I could go and do the training for the Olympics as long as I promised that I would go back and take the exams afterwards, which I did do. And you know, but it was an amazing experience. I think the great thing about sailing is that it's such a diverse sport that it really teaches you from a young age how to deal with a lot of different challenges. You know, you've obviously got the fitness, you've got the technical aspects of the boats, you've got to deal with the elements, the wind, the tides, working in, if you're sailing with another person, working with a team. So for me, I learned a huge amount in that period, and then being at the Olympic Games at 19 years old, that was a real eye-opener. I was a bit like a rabbit in the headlights, to be honest. But you know, somehow I got through that competition. I think maybe just by naivety, probably. I just concentrated on the sailing and didn't really worry about anything else, and ended up coming away with a silver medal, which was a great achievement. But at the same time, I was pretty disappointed because I was very close to winning the gold medal. And it probably sounds a bit stupid to everyone here now to say that at the time I wasn't sure if I would ever get the chance to go to the Olympics again, because, as you know, in sailing there's only one spot per nation, per class, and it's really difficult to even qualify. And so yeah, I was disappointed, but the great thing about it was it really fired me up in terms of my determination to try and keep going and get that gold medal the next time round. And really, for the next 4 years, I worked incredibly hard and was really you know, motivated by that challenge to beat a guy called Robert Shive, who was a Brazilian sailor who won the gold medal in '96. So we had this big rivalry, he and I, which sometimes got a little bit out of hand, but we never ended up in a fight, so it was okay. But it was a great rivalry, and actually it pushed both of us further and further in terms of, you know, the level we were able to take the laser sailing to at that period in time. And again, it's sort of that thing about training partners in your competition, actually using that to fuel you to sort of train harder and work harder and work out how to improve. And yeah, got through to the 2000 Olympics, and you know, it's always going to be a battle between Robert and myself, and that's how it worked out. It came down to the last race, and it was a very, very intense final race, which I managed to come out on top of, which was a huge relief for me after 4 years of hard work. People often ask, what does it feel like if you're able to be successful in an event like the Olympic Games? And actually, most people will probably tell you that it's just a huge sense of relief, because you have to put so much into an event like that, you know, 3 or 4 years of training, and also people around you, family, friends, are also sacrificing a lot to support you. You feel a huge sense of responsibility to actually go out and get the result and make it all worthwhile. And so I was very relieved to come away from Sydney with the result. And after that, I was able to go and get involved with the America's Cup for the first time. And as a kid, the Olympics and the America's Cup were the two events I was really very passionate about, wanting to be involved with. I just remember growing up down in Cornwall, we had a British America's Cup team there in those days in the late 80s, which was backed by a guy called Peter de Savary. And in those days, they were still sailing the old 12-metre boats. And I remember watching these boats as a kid and just being in complete awe of the size and the power of the boats, and really dreamt of one day being involved. So I had an opportunity to join a team, to get involved with an American-based America's Cup team. And so I went out to Seattle and joined this team, and it was a huge eye-opener. I mean, you know, obviously looking back now, it was a mistake because I wasn't really experienced enough. I didn't have any support there. I was 22 years old, and I sort of joined this professional sailing team. I didn't really have any idea what I was doing, other than that I could sail a laser reasonably well. So it was a bit of a challenge for me, but I did learn a lot. And most importantly, I learned a lot about being with a team, because up until then I'd been a single-handed sailor. And obviously it's a completely different set of challenges that you have working with a group of people. And you know, when you sail on your own, you're obviously living or dying by your own decisions and the tempo that you want to work at. But with a team, it's about the group, obviously, and how do you get people to work together well. And I learned a lot in that event, and that kind of has helped me through my career, ultimately to this last event in San Francisco with the America's Cup, which, if ever there was a case of a team having to sort of come together and work through some issues, that was it. yeah, after that experience with the America's Cup, I then switched to the fin class, which for me was, you know, after having sort of worked and sailed in a laser for about 8 years, it was time to make a change. And the fin class was perfect because it meant I could be a bit bigger. The ideal weight for the fin is maybe 96, 97 kilos, whereas for the laser it's much lighter, about sort of 78 or 80 kilos. So it meant I could put on a bit of weight, which was fun. And also the technical side of the boat was great as well, because with the fin it's quite a tight design rule, but you can have slightly different design sails, stiffness of mast. You can play around with the setup of the boat a little bit, which I found really interesting coming from the laser, which of course is a very strict one design. So to sort of start playing around with the design side of sailing at that stage of my career was very interesting, and I learnt a lot from that. You know, went through 3 Olympics in the fin class, which was great fun. Not without its challenges, had a few setbacks, and as I got older, certainly with this last Olympics in 2012, the physicality of the class was very tough, and it became much more physical. They changed some of the rules with how much you could work the boat. It became afternoon. Yeah, they changed the rules in terms of the pumping of the boat and Rule 42. So the boat became much more physical, and actually we found a lot of the younger guys coming through that were successful in the boat were much taller, heavier guys that were starting to become successful. So that was tough. That was, for me, physically that was the hardest part of the last Olympics in London in 2012. And also the expectations of racing at home. It was great to be sailing at home, but at the same time there were a lot of the issues that you have with everyday life, sort of, you know, paying the bills and catching up with family and friends. When you go away to compete abroad, as some of you will have found out, it's easier to just be focused on your sport and what you need to do, but when you're at home, of course, you can't do that. You have to worry about other things. So it was quite a difficult challenge in that respect, the home Olympics. But the flip side was we had a lot of home support, which was fantastic. We had a big headland in Weymouth and Fordham, which was where the final medal race was held for the Olympics, and I think there were sort of 5,000–6,000 people on this headland, all cheering away, supporting the home team. And it was the first time I really had some very small experience of what it must be like to be a footballer or a sportsman, playing in a stadium and having a team behind you, and the fans behind you. It was definitely a big inspiration. They made a big difference. So amazing experience to compete in home waters. And then we went on to the America's Cup in San Francisco, which was a real eye-opener to change, as you would have seen, to the multi-hulls and these incredible boats that ended up lifting out of the water on foils, so effectively flying around San Francisco Harbour. And that was a huge learning curve for everybody, because actually the rule for that class of boat was really written so that the boats shouldn't fly. And it turned out to be a huge mistake, because it actually made the boats very dangerous. And you know, as Anthony said, we had a terrible accident last year, which unfortunately a British sailor, Andrew Simpson, lost his life, which was he was one of my best friends, and it was a very, very difficult period for all of us close to Andrew. And it's you know, probably Bart actually, it's very funny. You know, the sport that you love doing, and we all have a lot of fun sailing, but then for something like that to happen, it you know, it stops you in your tracks and puts everything into perspective a little bit. But anyway, eventually we all regrouped and we got back out to San Francisco, and we got on with the racing. And for the Oracle team, we'd had a lot of setbacks. We crashed our boat about 12 months before the America's Cup, which cost us about 5 or 6 months of training and development time as we were getting ready for the event. And we also had this big measurement scandal for the smaller boats, the America's Cup 45 class, And that sort of had a knock-on effect to the America's Cup in that we were docked, we had a 2-race penalty going into the America's Cup, so we went into the event on minus 2 points. And so rather than having to win 9 races to win the Cup, we actually had to win 11. So we had some pretty big issues, and that kind of knocked us as a team. Our preparation time was down, we'd had these issues, it was a very, very difficult period. And then of course we started racing against Team New Zealand, who ended up being a challenging team, and they were clearly a lot faster than we were. They'd done a really good campaign, it was kind of faultless, if you like. They hadn't made any big key mistakes and were sailing very, very well. And as a team, we really had to stop and regroup. And each team got one, if you like, timeout card, where you could say, look, we've got a problem with the boat, we've got an issue with the boat, or there's a breakage, we don't want to race anymore, we're going back to shore. So we had to stop, pull our timeout card, go back to shore and try and work out what we could do to improve the situation. So
Can you all check your phones, please, and turn them off? Whose phone's it? No, who's going to get louder?
So
got a bucket of water here if you want.
So anyway, yeah, so we had to go and regroup and work out how we were going to sort this situation out, because we were a long way off the pace, and the Kiwi team were clearly doing a lot better than we were. And so we went away, we talked to the designers. It was really a huge team effort with the designers and the sailors and then the boat builders, who were the guys who had to fix the boat overnight to work out some of these issues. And also we changed the sailing team. So my role within the team was actually as one of the helmsmen, as a supporting helmsman. And then I was asked to get on the boat and take on the tactical role, which frankly was a little bit petrifying at the time, because I'd never sailed with any of these guys. I'd been sailing on the other boat, and there was a whole load of software that the tactician had, which he developed with the engineers, and I'd never seen this software. It was on a tablet PC in a life jacket, so I had no idea how that worked either. But thankfully, the guy who I replaced, John Kostecki, was really professional. I mean, it's a good lesson that he, whilst he was, asked to stand down from the team, which was very, very tough for him personally. It wasn't about him as an individual, it was about the team. And so he supported the decision, he supported me coming onto the boat, and I was really blown away by his professionalism. It's a very good lesson. And so he helped me to understand some of this technology, and we got out there and got racing. And it was a funny story, because I have a niece and nephew, and my nephew's 10 years old, and I phoned home to check in, and he answered the phone, and we just started racing, and he said, "Uncle Ben, it's great that you're sailing, and it's really good to watch it on the TV." He said, "But I don't understand why you keep looking for chocolates in your life jacket." So I had to explain to him, not chocolates, it's actually like, it's an iPad, So actually he thought that was quite cool as an iPad. So it was funny, but there was lightheartedness. But anyway, yeah, we managed to get the boat going. The big change, we changed the wing on the boat, which is what generates most of the power, and we put more depth into the wing. That gave us more power, it changed the balance of the boat a little bit. And then we worked on the technique of how we could use that power. And those of you watching would have seen that we managed to be the first team to get the boat to not only be foiling or flying downwind, but also doing that upwind. And that was a massive performance gain. It was over 25% improvement in the performance of the boat, which was, in any sport, that's huge. And that really then gave us the confidence to start sailing better. Of course, we tried to be positive and really, at times when things aren't going well, I think it's critical that you keep the communication going. It's easy when things aren't going well for people to sort of stick their head in the stand or look the other way and just sort of hope for a miracle. Well, actually, what you need to do, you need to get together as a group and keep the communication going and try. And certainly, my role coming onto the boat was trying to get some of the younger guys in our team. We had some really talented younger sailors, to try and get them to sort of start contributing more and have more of a say in the decision-making process. And that really worked for us. And we got on this amazing comeback, which was fantastic to be a part of, and for me, certainly, as I was saying, with most of my career being as a single-handed sailor, to do something like that with a group of people, with a really strong team, was incredibly rewarding. It was the most rewarding experience in my career, and so that was one thing I could say, you know, for your futures is, yeah, sailing on your own is great, and especially when you're younger, it can be a lot easier because you just get on with it. But certainly being with the team is pretty cool, and doing something, you know, being successful with the team, sharing that experience is really very special. So that's it. That's really been the last 25 years for me. And but I'm really interested to hear more about your sailing and what you're all doing. I know you sort of different you know, different types of boats and different stages in your development. But please, just any questions, fire them forwards, and hopefully I can help.
Thanks for that, Ben. Yeah, so questions?
On the rest day, how much did you change the foil system on Arthur? Because there are a lot of like theories going around about.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of talk actually, and I think probably that was the only negative for us as a team, was that there were a lot of rumours going around that Larry Ellison had flown in some specialists from Boeing and you know, 100 boat builders from New Zealand, which was actually, you know, was a complete load of nonsense. The rules are very strict about what systems you could use to control the foils, and it was all run hydraulically. So the sailors, the grinders, they had to produce a hydraulic pressure to be able to move the foils and the wing and really work the boat. So a lot of the teams had focused on that, but no, we didn't change that. The only thing we changed was really in the setup of the wing, and that, like I said, that's what made the biggest difference for us.
That and confidence.
Yeah, a bit of confidence.
Yeah. Nick.
You've obviously had a lot of moments where you've had to deal with immense pressure. These guys do a lot of racing. They sometimes have quite a lot of pressure as well. What sort of tips can you give to them to make sure they can stay on top of it when it really matters?
There's a couple of things. I think certainly the preparation is really critical. Going into a big event, if you've done your homework, you've done the preparation and the training, then I think it does give you the confidence that you know going into it you couldn't really have done much more. And so just go out and sail and do the best you can do. And you can't really ask any more of yourself. So in my experience, I know if I've gone into a competition and I haven't, for whatever reason, I haven't been able to prepare properly, I hate it. And it doesn't, certainly when you do then come under pressure, you don't feel comfortable, and that's when it's easy to make mistakes. So I think if you've done the right preparation, I think experience certainly helps. So the more times you can go through those high pressure situations, and whether it's a success or not, you know, learn from that experience. I always think it's not about what you're good at, it's what about you. It's what you're not good at that's important. So you have to be very honest about your performance, what your weakness areas are, and what you can improve on. And I think that's critical in any sport. Certainly in sailing, because it's such a complex sport, isn't it? I mean, there's so many things you have to try and get right. It's one of those sports where it's about making the least mistakes rather than sailing the perfect race. It's a little bit like golf, I think. You never play the perfect round of golf. It's about the person who makes the least mistakes, and that's the same in sailing. So really trying to be honest about where you can improve, and then the experience, you know, of the pressure situations that always helps.
If you have a setback, do you go through a routine about reviewing it, how you go about it, and how you approach next race?
Yeah, definitely. To try and have a structure of evaluating if there's an issue. You know, first of all, actually identifying that there is an issue, stopping, working out, getting the whole team involved, because quite often it has a knock-on. You know, the team sport has a knock-on effect to all different areas. So getting everyone involved, working out what the issue was, how can we improve that, and then working out a strategy to moving forwards and trying to improve and avoid it happening again. Yes.
Very banal question. In terms of preparing physically for regattas and races, as a laser sailor especially, what did you find were your weakest points physically, and what did you do to fix that?
Oh, well, physically, I've always struggled a little bit physically. I'm not one of those people that, unfortunately, I have to blame my parents. I obviously don't have a very good gene pool, so I'm not one of those people that goes to the gym and do a few bicep curls and then suddenly end up with, you know, guns. So I always had to work pretty hard at it, and so yeah, really about trying to certainly as a youngster, trying to build up the right muscles to help with hiking. So the core muscles, the abs, the legs, and the aerobic fitness as well, to be able to work the boat really hard. I think I mean, sports science has obviously come a huge way from when I was a kid. It was pretty basic back then, but nowadays there's so much support, I think, to have the right training, to do the right sports to be fit for sailing. So really trying to identify that, and it is important. And certainly you might not think it's important when you're a youngster and you're running around and you're feeling really fit and strong. But when you get to my age and you've been hiking out for 25 years, I can tell you, I wish I'd done a lot more core work and ab work to try and protect your back and all the rest of it. So if you can try and really work on that, it's important.
Great.
You said before it's really important to work together. How would you recommend that you convince other people to work together towards getting better for the so that everyone rises? Some people are a little bit funny about doing that. Some places, but how would you recommend trying to get everyone together?
Yeah, some people are, and generally in my experience they're the people that don't end up ultimately getting to the top. I've experienced it in Olympic teams where some guys, they just don't want to work with the team and they just want to do it their own way and they don't want to share ideas, but they're never the guys that succeed. And so, you know, like I said, I learned that lesson very early on when I was a youngster, and I stuck with it through my whole career. And you know, in the fin class, you know, I was fortunate to get results and qualify for the Olympics, but for me it was really important to bring the youngsters through, because those are the guys that I needed to train against, and I needed them to push me. And yeah, there was always a chance that they might ultimately end up beating me, and I almost was the case with Giles Scott, who's a very talented young fin sailor. He's not so young anymore, but very talented sailor who was new to the fin class, and we brought him through, and he trained with me for the 2008 Olympics, and he very nearly beat me for the spot for the 2012 Olympics. But you know, the deal is, if you want to be the best in the world, then you're gonna have to beat these guys anyway, and you have to accept that. You can't hide from it. So it's better to have them on your side and working together. And you know, if you have the right approach to it, you can use it in the right way. Yeah.
So what was the Top Gear Challenge like?
The Top Gear Challenge. Yeah, that was great fun. So we sailed from near Auckland up to the North Island in New Zealand. It was about 220 miles against Jeremy Clarkson in some clapped out old hire car. So, yeah, it was great. They were really nice people. We obviously had James May on the boat, who
was he completely useless?
Yeah, he was. He was really useless. And he plonked himself in probably the worst position on the boat he could possibly be in. He was so stubborn he wouldn't move. He spent 9 hours just getting absolutely hammered by the spray of the boat. And I have to say, when he got off the boat at the other end, he looked like a lobster. That was it. So it was a really fun thing to do. They're very nice guys.
In preparation for the last America's Cup, did you do any international moth sailing?
No, I didn't do any more sailing, but a lot of the guys that we had in the team did do. A lot of the younger Australian sailors, they all had some moths, and certainly that's really, you know, applicable to the America's Cup now. And a lot of sailing is going that way to these much more high performance boats. And obviously the moths boiling around. It's a really cool class now. So I'm sure a lot of you younger guys, girls are looking forward to doing that kind of sailing a little bit more. And sailing is becoming much more exciting. I mean, it's great that it's actually quite a cool sport now. Whereas in the old days, perhaps it was a little bit staid. And certainly now, back in the UK, people who watch the America's Cup, who'd never been into sailing before actually watched it, and for the first time ever, you know, to have people, non-sailors, say that was really cool. I really enjoyed watching that, and went back and watched it time and time again. I think that's a real breakthrough for our sport. So you guys are really coming into it at the right time. I think the future's really exciting for sailing, and really try and make the most of it.
Two questions. You obviously started sailing quite young. At what age did you realize to yourself that you could truly become a world-class sailor? And the second question is, for maybe some of the younger opti sailors, I mean, what kind of hours were you putting into this sort of practice regimen on a weekly basis to get to the level that you wanted to be at?
Well, I was a good sailor when I was a kid at a national level, and I went to 4 Optimist World Championships, but you know, I never performed internationally for whatever reason, and that was a big learning curve for me. I really struggled with travelling abroad and the international competition. So it wasn't until maybe I was 15, 16 that I really, and I think it's important that young people obviously develop at different stages. So just because you might not be the best in the Optimist, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be any good when you're older, and vice versa. A lot of good Optimist sailors who don't transition to senior level sailing. So you know, obviously it's about development, it's about how interested you are, how far you want to take it through, and of course learning. But yeah, I guess I was 16, 17, I really started learning a lot, developing a lot with my sailing in that period, and started doing well at senior level, and I guess then I thought, well, maybe I could try and qualify for the Olympic Games, and I was 18 when we had the qualifications for the Olympic Games, and I did manage to win that series. And then I was off, so then I was training for the Olympics, and I thought, you know, if I can do a good job of this, then maybe it could be something I could do full time. I think the training, again, at a young level, it's really about learning and enjoying the sport. I mean, we train pretty hard. I'd probably sail 3 or 4 days a week when I was a kid, but my parents never pushed me to sail. I was very lucky. I lived near the water, and I just wanted to be out there the whole time. I just loved the sport, loved the sailing. Yeah, I mean, to be obviously, my parents were very careful not to really push me too hard. I think the only thing they said to me when I started racing a lot more, travelling nationally and internationally, then it became, you know, for them it became a big time commitment. And I think they just said, look, if you're going to race, if you're going to do it, you've got to try and do it properly. So don't mess around and waste our family's time. But they never really said, oh, you know, if I didn't do well in the event, it was okay. I didn't get whipped or anything like that.
Thank you.
Okay, we're running close on time. There's a few more questions.
We've just talked about the level of commitment required, but what about the sacrifices you had to make along the way as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable if you're doing something like an Olympic campaign. Yeah, of course, anything in life that's full on, you know, you do have to make sacrifices. It can be hard at times, certainly on family and friends and other things in life. But I think if you're really passionate about something, then you're prepared to make that commitment. It shouldn't really be a question. Really, it's about the people around you. So making sure that family, friends, that they're aware of what you're trying to achieve, and you know, you're not selfish about it. That whilst you might want to be committed to something, it doesn't mean that everybody else around you has to as well. So working around other people. But yeah, ultimately, if you want to be an Olympic champion, then you're going to have to work your socks off, and pretty much everything else in your life has got to be put by the wayside. And you have to make that decision quite early on. You can't, you can't have your cake and eat it as such. So but that's okay, and that's the beauty about sailing. Not everybody has to be an Olympic champion. It's a fantastic sport at all different levels and all different types of boats. That's why I love it. I mean, I love going out. I have a cruising boat, a classic boat, which I probably get more enjoyment out of sailing that than I do out of racing in the Olympic Games. It's really about a competitive thing as opposed to a sport thing. So it's a sport for everybody, and I think that's why we're all here in this room. Probably we just love being out on the water.
How are your preparations going for the potential British entry into the next America's Cup?
Yeah, they're going really well. Yeah, it's been a big task in the last 6 months since the America's Cup to start getting the funding together for a British team. You know, the budget for that is around about £80 million, so it's a huge amount of money that we have to raise through private investors and through commercial sponsorship, and also getting together the right team of managers and designers and sailors and boat builders. So it's been a huge job, starting off from just myself to eventually we'll have about 80-85 people in the team. But it's been a really interesting challenge for me, and all my life so far really has been out on the water sailing boats, to suddenly have to sort of try and work out how to put a team together and management structures and funding and all that sort of thing. It's pretty interesting. It's been exciting. I've learned a huge amount. But of course, it's about the team that we build. It's not about the individuals. So we've got to get the right people, as I said, the right designers, pretty critical in the America's Cup, and the right management team to keep the team going in the right direction and make sure that we have the right budgets and all that sort of boring stuff to do with money. But it's great. It's been a fantastic challenge, and hopefully we can ultimately be successful. We never won the America's Cup in Britain. It started there in 1851. The American team came and won the trophy and took it away, and we never seen it since. We're working on it. And as Anthony said, the other great thing we've got going on this year is, and we were talking earlier about Andrew Simpson, is a foundation that we set up in his memory, the Andrew Simpson Sailing Foundation. And we've got this amazing event on the 21st of September, which I hope you'll all be competing in, the Bart Bash, which will be fantastic. It'll be I think it'll be the biggest sailing event there's ever been. And of course, the goal of the foundation is to try and help underprivileged kids get into sailing, starting off in the UK, and hopefully we can turn it into something that's global and really help young kids that wouldn't otherwise be able to have a go at sailing, to get them out on the water, and if they enjoy it, to hopefully keep going and keep sailing and maybe have a career in sailing, if not as a sailor, maybe as a boat builder or a sailmaker or a yacht designer in the sailing industry. And so it's a great thing that we've done, and obviously Andrew's wife and his family are really taken aback by the level of support that we've had and the money that's been raised so far. So we're really looking for everybody's support, and we're very appreciative of it.
Thanks, Ben. Well, we'll be there, and hopefully you'll be there as well. So a big hand, please.
Yeah, we've got people in the background.
Okay, good.
Thank you.